It goes without saying that Bethesda are the Western kings of RPG design. Globally, there's a case to be made for CD Projekt Red usurping their considerable talent and showing the world how it's done with The Witcher 3, but if we're looking at America's finest, Bethesda tower above the competition. And why? Because consistently from game to game, we've only seen an uptick in general quality. Both quality of life improvements and complete overhauls in gameplay mechanics, you can chart a pretty staggering course from the primitive 3D of 1994's Elder Scrolls Arena through the expansive quest designs of Morrowind and the industry-shaking might of Skyrim. The less we say about Fallout 76, the better. Let's just stick with the good stuff for now. With great popularity comes great responsibility, and the Elder Scrolls of today is a suitably more complex beast than ever before. That's also saying nothing of Bethesda themselves, who have gone from one of the most beloved developers in gaming to a company now associated with paid mods, early access releases masquerading as full-price products, restrictive review policies, and disappointing sequels. To make a new Elder Scrolls worthy of the franchise's demonstrable lineage, we need something that rights every last wrong of the past. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and this is the Elder Scrolls 6, 11 past mistakes Bethesda can't repeat. Number 11, nail a reliable combat system. In a world before Dark Souls caught on and showed the industry how to do tactile third-person combat properly, we had the likes of Skyrim and all its forebears going for the whole just flail around and hope for the best style setup. Sure, there's a block button, you can unlock a dodge roll of sorts, and different weapons have different damage arcs, but when it comes to reliably swinging your blade and hoping to hit home, good luck. Returning to a modless console Skyrim now highlights just how far we've come in the last 8 years, as Skyrim itself continued the aforementioned hit and hope structure set in motion across the entire franchise. There's zero animation put into any clashing of steel, no limb targeting, or even a reaction from the NPC themselves. Instead, enemies will press ahead and continue in your general direction no matter what. That's without mentioning that even when you do block, the animation doesn't take 100% of incoming damage until you find a specific shield, blade, or equip the right spell. Simply put, Skyrim's combat was fine for the time, and we went with it for the sake of exploration, but it desperately needs an overhaul. Number 10, a more driven personal story. There'll be two schools of thought coming out of this point. Do you want A, another larger-than-life epic tale where you're the chosen one, gathering up resources and building power for 90% of the time, only to face off against some barely comprehensible god force? Or B, a story almost like what Fallout 4 was attempting, where one person in amongst a wider world of larger ramifications is trying to accomplish a more personal goal? I'd say the latter is why Obsidian's Fallout New Vegas tends to be more beloved. You're already a part of an established world, can operate without the gaping hole of logic surrounding why your protagonist isn't inquiring about every last facet of the environment. Overall, it would be far more interesting and nuanced to frame a story where an all-powerful character like the Dragonborn is off doing their thing elsewhere, rather than playing as them yourself. Think of stories like how Metal Gear Solid 2 portrayed Snake from a fresh perspective, or how Halo Reach or ODST framed the importance of Master Chief in a wider context. If Bethesda want to capitalize on all the explorative and escapist elements of the Elder Scrolls series, give us a character who already lives in that world and go from there. Number 9, encumbrance and over-encumbrance. Of all the base game features prevalent in a Bethesda RPG, over-encumbrance is the most unwelcome. Put in place to stop you gathering too many resources at once, because perish the thought, we've reached a point where the very ideology of exploration is at odds with the design of the game's menus. Now, if you're thinking there'd be an element of immersion broken when a character can carry a small town's worth of items on their back, fine. But why not have spells that can teleport items back to your homestead? Why not load up a horse or follower NPC and command them to take your gear home? Even if Bethesda have some in-house reason for maintaining their stance on encumbrance being a necessary feature, we need some sort of unlockable workaround to free up space over time. Number 8, reliable climbing and mantling controls. Another quality of life improvement, with Skyrim came a bigger focus on verticality in comparison to the past Elder Scrolls titles. And though it was certainly pretty stunning to clamber up the throat of the world and peer out across the realm, actually getting up there was a mess of button mashing and prodding the analog stick in the right direction. Specifically, we all looked to those parts of the mountainsides where two textures would meet, as there the game would, just for a second, assume there was some ground to stand on, meaning that if you hammered the hell out of the jump button, you could kinda awkwardly clamber up any chunk of the environment. Going forward though, Elder Scrolls needs a climbing system. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild showed just how much fun it can be to point your character at literally anything in the world and see them scale it. And with Bethesda at the helm potentially designing quests around retrieving items from on high or having to track down a formidable foe, it would fit like a glove. Number 7, difficulty outside of just stat tweaking. Games like Destiny 2 have refined their various stat tracking innards to produce a steady stream of loot and equipment. And though there's far more to an Elder Scrolls than just acquiring better gear, it stands to reason that here difficulty as a concept is tied to min-maxing various meters. To make an even more relatable point, how many times have you dove into a random cave and found an enemy only for it to flatten you in seconds? The prevailing thought thereafter is, well, I should come back to that thing when I can absorb more damage, but there should be far more to difficulty than just making yourself a sponge or being able to hit harder in return. Difficulty should be so much more than they hit hard, so I'm gonna level up and return and hit harder, and Bethesda need to catch up to what the rest of the action genre is producing. Number 6, include a greater variety of environments. Oblivion, a forest. Skyrim, frosty mountainsides. Such tilesets dominate their respective game screenshots and even our recollection of journeying through them. And that's a shame because both games always had way more to offer. Skyrim's underground dwarven workshops were a highlight, for example, as was the spectral light show of Blackreach. And yet, these are small pockets of variety in a game dominated by one particular look. Morrowind was the last time we had an Elder Scrolls more populated by everything from volcanic ash to dense forestation, standard crumbling dungeons and populated townships to boot. It's not to say that Oblivion and Skyrim didn't have anything to offer overall, but it is true that the majority of main quests and moment-to-moment travel will see you breathing in a lot of similar-looking assets. For a next-generation Elder Scrolls built from the ground up to take advantage of the latest hardware, a world that showcases a greater variety of environments like Horizon Zero Dawn, for example, is a must. Number 5, failing quests because of specific scripting bugs. Part and parcel of the general get a new engine, fix the bugs, sort out the animations qualm, if there was one specific thing that directly gets in the way of our enjoyment, besides quests breaking because NPCs get stuck in the environment anyway, it's the scripting bugs. Assumedly down to Bethesda's otherwise genius radial quest tech, where the game will generate a quest to take you somewhere you've not visited yet, this often results in things like enemies being locked out of the world geometry or followers falling off cliffs. Whilst things like a backwards flying dragon or a market cellar being comprised of nothing but a floating set of teeth is perhaps part of that Bethesda charm, actual game-breaking bugs are no laughing matter. The only solution is to reload a save if you can and hope for the best, which isn't remotely an acceptable practice. Number 4, make stealth work or ditch it. I kinda can't fathom players who seriously try to spec their Elder Scrolls characters in stealthy directions. Though the benefits are tenfold, being at max level you can essentially walk straight through areas in broad daylight, doing triple damage whenever you see fit. Although taking that to its natural conclusion, actually trying to play a thief-type character will only result in enemies spying you from directions you couldn't possibly have foreseen, and it's why we need more visualization of things like detection chance, enemy vision, and potential patrol routes. Make all of this spell or skill tree based if need be, but make stealth a viable tactic. Or you can ditch it altogether and bolster the remaining perk options. Another necessary element to making stealth feel natural is cave and environment design. We need more routes through dungeons and enemy encampments, as no matter how carefully you're advancing forward or you've spec'd in a direction to lower visibility, if the area ahead is comprised of 4 goons looking your way, there's nowhere to go but straight through. Number 3, follower controls that actually have tactical value. Speaking of better environmental design, how about we have areas that upon entering, you could tell would benefit from approaching with a comrade? In past Elder Scrolls titles and in Fallout, we've been able to recruit followers and have them come along on quests. It was the entire ethos behind Fallout 76, and regardless of the fact that that didn't go very well, the reality is that in combat, watching attack animations play out together is a blast. At least it should be, as I've already mentioned, a whole bunch of glitches kinda get in the way, and 9 times out of 10 your follower has already toppled off the side of a mountain, or they're on their way to your quest marker being left behind. If Bethesda carry forward this notion of recruiting characters to aid in quests, let us actually place them in specific spots or give them more in-depth commands. It would be great to have a healer on hand for when we go under a specific amount of health, or someone to throw up a shield, lay down covering arrow fire, or draw a mini-boss's attention while we recover. There are so many opportunities to make combat have this more immediately tactile edge, and though Elder Scrolls is very much an isolated experience, if we are going to have the option to recruit, do it right. Number 2, completely redesign puzzles and puzzle-based dungeons. As a modern-day concept in the average video game, puzzles are nigh on impossible to get right. Too obtuse and you've immediately made the player wonder if they're standing in the right spot or if they've missed something obvious. Though too obvious and they're pointless. Games like Breath of the Wild and Inside walk that line to perfection, but when it comes to Skyrim, the majority of what's on offer tended to boil down to find X item and rotate to find a clue, or find the switch/lever in the environment to proceed. Very basic, almost arbitrary stuff, and an indication that the developers most likely sat down and thought, well, we should have something here, rather than design based on creative flourish. As such, give us dungeons that require lateral thinking and genuine puzzle solving, but include enough hints in the environment as to what to do. Again, Breath of the Wild kinda showed Bethesda up by having a specific set of tools at your disposal, ones that you know can be applied to each location, and though Elder Scrolls gameplay is far more experimental, establishing a base set of rules for these sections would work wonders. And number 1, don't casualize the experience even further. Evident in everything from Fallout 4's dialogue system to the literal on-screen markers and various hovering checkpoints of Skyrim's quest design, aiming for a specific caliber of gamer introduces another tightrope of base appeal to walk during the development process. Indeed, many were forced to think on just how accessible and simplistic Skyrim's quest structures had become when CD Projekt Red's Jonas Mattsson called the game casual. Though his comment was more rooted in how story-driven The Witcher 3 would be at the time, it's worthwhile to note that Bethesda's increased popularity has resulted in a drastically more handholdy design. Needless to say, Fallout 4's streamlining of past installments' conversation systems was a massive misfire, though it hints at the sort of audience size Bethesda are now targeting. Forget 76, and is Fallout the isolated experience of gradual world building and character embodiment, or a fast track to shoot super mutants and create settlements? Consequently, what does this mean for a new Elder Scrolls? Will it follow in Fallout 4's footsteps? Will it borrow anything from Fallout 76? And what does it mean in terms of bringing across any lessons learned from Skyrim's Hearthfire DLC? Let me know down in the comments how you see Elder Scrolls 6 playing out. Do you see Bethesda borrowing any elements from Fallout 76, or will this be more of a continuation of the old school Bethesda that we know and love? I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com. Please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast, and I'll catch you soon.